Hello and welcome to ARIRANG News, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Hwang Ji-hye. And these are the stories we're following at this hour. The Korean government and the ruling party are discussing ways to make the installation of CCTV cameras at childcare centers compulsory after a horrific video showing a case of child abuse caused an uproar in the country. Prospects are dimming for proposed reunions of families separated by the Korean War as North Korea continues to protest against an annual joint military exercise between Seoul and Washington. And Psy's Hangover has gotten more than 170 million hits on YouTube, becoming the most viewed K-pop video in the U.S. last year. We begin with the Korean government and the ruling party. They're set to announce a series of measures aimed at preventing child abuse that would make the installation of CCTV cameras at childcare centers compulsory. This comes after a horrific video of a teacher abusing a child at a daycare center caused public outrage across the country. Park Ji-won reports.
The government and the ruling party are scheduled to hold an emergency meeting on Friday afternoon to come up with measures to prevent child abuse at daycare centers. Ruling Saenuri Party leader Kim Moo-seong will preside over the meeting to be held at a municipal childcare information center in western Seoul. Minister of Health and Welfare Moon Hyung-pyo will also attend as the government's representative. The main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy Party has just launched a task force on the issue, vying to devise proper measures. One of the measures being discussed would make the installation of CCTV cameras at childcare centers compulsory. It would also require stronger qualifications for daycare supervisors while weeding out those who have been convicted for child abuse. The number of childcare centers in Korea has skyrocketed over the years, from some 5,000 in early 1990s to over 43,000 last year. Although the government provides the centers with some $5.5 billion annually, only 10% are public facilities. The rest are private centers believed to be lacking the proper supervision. Meanwhile, the number of cases of abuse at both public and private facilities has more than doubled in recent years, from 100 in 2010 to over 230 in 2013. There are currently more than 1.4 million infants and children being taken care of at the nation's childcare centers. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
There's a tug-of-war going on between the two Koreas, dragging on the momentum for dialogue. The South wants to hold a round of reunions for war-separated families, while the North is protesting the upcoming joint military drills between Seoul and Washington. Hwang Ji-hye reports.
A fundamental solution for war-separated families will be South Korea's top priority if it engages in talks with North Korea. The South Korean government wants to make reunions regular and routine for hundreds of families that lost contact during the Korean War 6 decades ago. Seoul has said it's willing to address issues of North Korea's interest in return, like the lifting of sanctions and resuming tours to Mount Kumgang. As a starter, South Korea has proposed a round of reunions for separated families next month.
이번 설을 전후로 이산가족 상봉이 이루어질 수 있도록 북한이 열린 마음으로 응해 줄 것을 기대합니다.
The reunions could take place as late as the end of next month, since the joint military drills between Seoul and Washington have been pushed back to the first week of March. But a postponement of the training exercise is not enough for Pyongyang. North Korea's ambassador to the United Nations in Geneva on Thursday protested the upcoming drills, threatening another Korean war.
Otherwise, if we stand still and if we are in the state of pause, then there might be another Korean War, the Second Korean War in the peninsula.
Seoul's Unification Ministry said Friday that its proposal for a reunion event still stands and that it does not plan to make another offer for talks. But with North Korea sitting on South Korea's offer for more than 2 weeks, analysts say the current tug-of-war could lead to a loss of momentum for better inter-Korean ties. Hwang Ji-hye, ARIRANG News.
The South Korean Red Cross will push to hold regular reunions for families separated by the Korean War under a plan called Action 110 drawn up to mark its 110th anniversary. The organization will seek North Korea's cooperation to locate the surviving relatives of some 68,000 South Korean families. In addition, it will propose launching a letter exchange program for them and offer more humanitarian aid to North Korea. The last round of reunions was held last February. And despite the tensions between the two Koreas, Seoul and Washington are pushing to strengthen their joint military posture, officially launching a combined wartime division. The body is tasked with military operations if a war were to break out. Kim Hyun-bin reports.
South Korea and the U.S. have forged the world's first combined division to enhance their joint defense posture and combat capabilities. 30 South Korean officers have been dispatched to the U.S. 2nd Infantry Division in Korea's central Gyeonggi-do province to join up with the division. Military officials say the current Combined Forces Command ensures strategic cooperation between the allies, but the new combined division strengthens tactical-level wartime cooperation. A two-star U.S. 2nd Division commander will head the division, while a South Korean brigadier general is second in command. A South Korean mechanized infantry brigade will be combined with the 2nd U.S. Infantry Division during wartime, with U.S. forces in charge of operations and South Korean forces looking after logistics. If war were to break out, the division will be expected to undertake civilian affairs operations in North Korea, and it'll also be tasked with removing weapons of mass destruction, including Pyongyang's nuclear arsenal. The division will be relocated to Camp Humphrey in Pyeongtaek, Gyeonggi-do Province by 2016 under the Land Partnership Plan. The division headquarters will also be moved to Pyeongtaek, along with the Joint Allied Staff. To enhance interoperability and combat readiness, the Combined Command is scheduled to hold a joint training drill next week. They'll also take part in the Joint Key Resolve and Coal Eagle training exercises in early March. Kim Hyun-bin, ARIRANG News.
And Korea is maintaining its stance that Japan must apologize and properly compensate the victims of its sexual enslavement of Korean women before and during World War II. This after Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said he would uphold a landmark apology to the victims during a meeting on Thursday with a group of Korean lawmakers. Connie Kim reports.
Korea has once again called for a swift resolution to the issue of Japan's wartime sexual enslavement, citing the advancing ages of the surviving victims. Speaking to reporters on Friday, a day after a group of Korean lawmakers met Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in Tokyo, Korea's presidential office spokesperson Min Kyung-uk stressed that the wartime sexual enslavement issue is a humanitarian issue that should be dealt quickly. More than 200,000 women, mostly Korean, were forced to serve as sex slaves to the Japanese military in the early 20th century, and 55 surviving victims are waiting for an apology from the Japanese government. Also on Thursday, Chu Cheol-gi, Cheongwade Senior Secretary for Foreign Affairs and Security, said Korea will reciprocate when Japan takes action to uphold a landmark apology to the victims of wartime sexual enslavement issued in 1993. Abe had told the Korean delegation that Tokyo does not deny the Kono statement and that the comfort woman issue is heartbreaking. He said it is regrettable that the issue has been turned into a political dispute, but did not propose a concrete resolution. Bilateral ties between Korea and Japan have been at a historic low, mainly because Japan continues to deny its historic wrongdoing. The two countries are hoping to improve their relations this year, which marks the 50th anniversary of diplomatic ties between them. On Monday, the two countries will meet in Tokyo for high-level talks to discuss the wartime sexual slavery issue, raising expectations of a possible breakthrough in relations between the two countries. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News.
With the devastating outbreak of bird flu in 2011 fresh in everyone's minds, the Korean government has announced preemptive measures to try and nip this latest outbreak in the bud at the earliest possible moment. There will be a day-and-a-half-long complete lockdown of all poultry farms, workers, and vehicles from Saturday morning. Shin Se-min reports.
The movement of birds, farm workers, and vehicles at tens of thousands of farms across the entire nation will come to a complete standstill for 36 hours from the early hours of Saturday morning. This is the first ever nationwide lockdown on the transportation of poultry as the government tries to prevent the spread of bird flu. Korea's Agriculture Ministry says the movement ban will remain in effect from 6 a.m. on Saturday until 6 p.m. on Sunday. Some cattle farms are also on lockdown to prevent the spread of foot and mouth disease. That 36-hour window will be used to disinfect farms, buildings, and vehicles used to transport animals.
These measures will hopefully suppress the spread of the bird flu, as cases have been popping up in different parts of the country.
This marks Korea's third large-scale attempt to decontaminate poultry farms and facilities since the first case of bird flu in this outbreak was confirmed last July. Also, for the first time, the government will penalize farmers who don't abide by the measures. The maximum penalty has been set at more than $9,000 or possibly even a few months in prison. While there is understandable concern, the Agriculture Ministry notes that this is not considered a major bird flu outbreak yet, and the lockdown is just a precautionary measure. The bird flu is thought to come into Korea from migratory birds that come to the country during the winter months. There have been cases of bird flu dotted around the country, with confirmed cases found in Korea's southwestern Jeollanam-do province, the southern city of Busan, and the central Gyeonggi-do province. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
Europe is dreading more possible terror attacks on this Friday. Special forces in Belgium killed 2 suspects in one of several anti-terror raids conducted throughout the country overnight. Authorities say they thwarted a major and imminent attack with the sweep that is suspected to be linked to Islamic extremists. Connie Lee has the details.
Belgium's threat level today is at its second highest point, at level 3.
Complementary measures of protection and security will be taken for evident reasons that we are not going to communicate.
This after authorities there staged a counter-terror raid in the eastern city of Vevey. Gunfire rang out between police and the suspects under the cover of night at a building on Thursday. 2 suspects died in the shootout and 1 was injured and arrested, according to Belgian authorities.
The investigation was able to establish that this group was about to commit terrorist attacks. The suspects immediately and for several minutes opened fire with military weaponry and handguns on special forces of the federal police before being neutralized.
Officials say the group of suspected terrorists, who are believed to have recently returned to Belgium from fighting in Syria, were planning to launch attacks on a grand scale imminently. A Belgian counterterrorism official says anti-terror raids are continuing in Brussels and surrounding areas now. The massive anti-terror raid comes just a week after the terrorist attacks in Paris at the office of satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo, which left 12 people dead, and at a kosher supermarket where 4 hostages were killed. Authorities, however, say that for now, they see no direct link between those attacks and the events that unfolded in Belgium. Connie Lee, ARIRANG News.
And France is being pummeled again, this time in cyberspace. The French military's head of cyber defense said 19,000 websites in the country have come under cyber attacks since last week. He said most were minor denial of service attacks that targeted government and military sites, as well as private businesses. Some were carried out by well-known Islamic hacker groups such as the Middle East Cyber Army and Cyber Caliphate. But no major damage has been reported. The United States and Cuba will take a huge step toward normalizing their relations on this Friday as Washington is going to substantially ease travel and financial restrictions on Havana. This means many more Americans will be able to travel to Cuba without a license, and Americans, mostly Cubans living in the States, will no longer be restricted in the amount of money they wire or spend on the island. Americans will also be able to use their credit and debit cards while they're in Cuba. The move is the first tangible step forward rebuilding diplomatic ties between the two countries that had been almost completely severed since 1961. The changes, however, do not lift the U.S. embargo on Cuba, which will remain in full effect. Now shifting gears, Psy's Hangover was the most viewed K-pop video in the United States last year. According to Billboard magazine, the single grabbed the #1 spot with more than 170 million views on YouTube. It marks the third straight year that Psy has topped the list, following Gangnam Style and Gentleman. Hangover, released in June, features American hip-hop legend Snoop Dogg and pokes fun at Korea's drinking culture. Google says it expects people will be using its self-driving cars on public roads within 5 years. The company has already started talks with automakers, and Korea's LG Electronics is also going to play an important role. Kim Min-ji reports.
Self-driving cars are not science fiction, they're real and coming soon. Google says that autonomous cars should be on public roads within the next 5 years, although they would still be test vehicles. Speaking at a conference in Detroit, Chris Urmson, the director of Google's self-driving car project, underscored safety and said the cars would be monitored to see how they interact with other vehicles and pedestrians. He wants to reach the stage where his test team no longer pilots the cars. In a recent interview with Reuters, Urmson said Google is teaming up with auto suppliers to speed up the process.
So yeah, we've been talking with the automotive community for the last few years. We are really excited about the technology. We are excited to push it forward for all the benefits and safety and convenience and just kind of making the world a better place.
Korea's LG Electronics, for one, will supply battery packs for the high-tech vehicles. Urmson says that autonomous cars will bring a breakthrough to transportation, not only a game-changer for regular drivers, but also for the disabled or elderly. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
Hollywood's award season has been going on for months, but it came to a head this morning when the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences announced the nominations for this year's Oscars. Here to discuss the picks and who may come away with gold next month is film critic Piers Conran. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon.
So, how did you feel about the Academy Award nominations when you read the papers this morning?
Well, actually, I watched them live last night. They were going quite late while they were playing live in Los Angeles.
So you watched them live. You must be a big fan of it.
The truth is, the first time I ever did that, and the reason I did so was because there's the film Snowpiercer, the Korean film from 2013. I'm a big fan of, and I just wanted to see if it would get a nomination. Now, it was a real long shot, but there was a small chance for the actress Tilda Swinton to be recognized in the Best Supporting Actress category. Up until now, no Korean film has ever received an Academy Award nomination. And I'm sad to say that that remains the case this morning.
Well, that's too bad that there weren't any Korean films, but what did you think about what actually did get nominated?
I guess my first reaction that the Oscars are very white this year. In fact, across all the directing categories and all the acting categories, there was not a single person who wasn't white, which is a little disturbing. The last time that happened was in 1995. But that aside, I think there weren't a lot of surprises. The big omission was perhaps the film The Lego Movie, which did not get nominated in the animation category, and also the film Selma, which is the Martin Luther King biopic, only received a Best Picture nomination, but was snubbed in the directing and actor categories, which many people thought it would get in. Besides that, I think I was a little surprised to see that Bennett Miller was nominated for Best Director for Foxcatcher, yet his film did not make the actual Best Picture list. In most categories, are just 5 nominees, but the Best Picture list can go up to 10, although this year they only went up to 8.
So what were the biggest nominees for this year?
Top of the list was Birdman and The Grand Budapest Hotel. So the Birdman is Alejandro González Iñárritu's film, and Grand Budapest Hotel, of course, from Wes Anderson. They both came away with 9 nominations, just quite a lot. And just under that was The Imitation Game by Morton Tilden. That was 8 nominations. And then 6 nominations apiece for American Sniper and Boyhood. And then 5 for Foxcatcher, Interstellar, The Theory of Everything, and Whiplash.
So would you say that those films are a fair representation of the American film last year?
Well, in terms of the top ones, for Birdman and Budapest, I'm a big fan of those films, so I'm very happy to see those there. And then we have a little further down, Boyhood is an incredible achievement, and that's been getting raves all of last year. On the flip side, we have films like The Imitation Game and American Sniper and The Theory of Everything, films that are perfectly fine, but are just really middle of the road, kind of mediocre films designed for Oscar glory, and which invariably catch the Academy's attention. So again, kind of films about white male protagonists overcoming problems, and it's just kind of the very safe options, but they have a strong marketing, have strong distributors behind them, like the Weinstein Company, who get them this far up in the nominees list.
So what are the films that you were hoping to see more for the Oscars 2015?
Well, obviously Snowpiercer, but I was definitely going to be disappointed.
You are a huge fan of Snowpiercer.
I'm a big fan, but that was always going to be a huge long shot. But there are a few that I felt were underrepresented and more like realistic choices. One of those was Paul Thomas Anderson's Inherent Vice. He's a name that's cropped up at the Academy many times. But this film, which I really like, I think it was a little bit of a tougher choice for the Academy, so I'm not surprised that it didn't get many nominations, but it did get a few. Besides that, I was really hoping to see that Jake Gyllenhaal would get a Best Actor nomination for Nightcrawler. I think he was terrific in it. And again, some of these choices that are in there really, I think, are pale in comparison to him. And another of my favorites from last year was Interstellar, of course, a film that was very popular in Korea.
You're a huge fan of Interstellar. I still remember.
Yeah. It did get 5 nominations, but those were mostly in the technical categories, so not ignored, but not really given proper artistic recognition.
So, do you still have any films you haven't watched among them, or are you planning to watch?
Well, I've been very lucky to have seen pretty much everything. So the only thing I haven't seen is the Irish animation Song of the Sea, which is nominated for Best Animation. I've heard it's very good, and I look forward to the chance of seeing it.
So we see a lot of good movies here, but many of the nominated films are released in Korea, so it didn't have reached all the Korean viewers yet, right?
That's true. The schedule is always a little later. These films, a lot of these Oscar films have to open by the end of December in the States, but that's not the case for the rest of the world. So there's plenty to look forward to for local viewers. Next month, we're going to get the films Foxcatcher, Nightcrawler, and Ida, which is a Polish film, which was nominated for Best Foreign Film, and also Cinematography. And then the month later, we'll have Whiplash, of course, Birdman, which I highly recommend, and Leviathan, another foreign film pick, which is from Russia, a very good film as well.
So I guess this has to be the question that wraps up this whole talk with you. But who do you think will win the Oscars?
Well, I think it's looking pretty strong for Boyhood right now in Best Film and Best Director. It's really been sweeping everything up until now, and just it plays into the Academy. It plays into, everyone just kind of sees this as a labor of love and an impressive film, and really also quite experimental. For the acting categories, it's looking also not very hard to choose. Michael Keaton, I think, will definitely come away with Best Actor. Julianne Moore will most likely take Best Actress for Still Alice. By the way, Michael Keaton is Birdman. And in the supporting actor categories, it's J.K. Simmons to Lose for Whiplash, and then Patricia Arquette will most likely walk away with the Best Supporting Actress for Boyhood.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us for the Inside of the Oscars.
My very great pleasure.
It's a rainy Friday here in Korea. Michelle Park here with the latest weather forecast. After a dark gray morning, we are finally seeing some sunlight, but it's expected to stay cloudy all throughout the day, along with some on and off precipitation. Now, the rain is expected to fall now through the late afternoon in the upper regions of the peninsula, while the southern regions can expect it later in the day until the evening. Now, currently, we still have high levels of fine dust. In fact, it's gotten worse than yesterday, so be sure to bring a mask along with an umbrella when you go outside. And let's just hope this rain clears away the dust. Taking a look at the readings for today, Seoul has dropped about 3 degrees from yesterday, reaching up to 4 degrees in the afternoon, while the southern cities such as Gwangju and Busan will reach up to 6 and 11 degrees. Moving over to other regions such as Jeju gets up to 10, Dokdo hits down to 6, while Namgungang is murky at -4 degrees. Well, that's all for now. Michelle Park, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And that wraps up our newscast. More updates coming up at 4 p.m. Korea time. Thank you for staying with us.